Hey Game Leapers, what's going on? This is Coach Cheeks and 1312 has hit the rift. Who's keen to get some free LP? Let's get it. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 20 most broken champions for this patch from the data we have so far from the last like 24 hours or so. So these picks are the best on the rift, and I'm also going to give you maybe some like build information, maybe some tips for the champions. So of course, make sure you stick around for the whole thing. But this video, guys, isn't really going to improve you as a player all that much. You know what will? Actually, the GameLeap website at GameLeap.com, we have coached people to Challenger for every single role, and our videos are designed so you can actually play like the best on the rift. Whether it's for like actual champion micro, so specific champion courses and guides, or just like general role macro, we have you covered. We have been there and done it, so check out those videos uploaded by our Challenger players and coaches from across the world and sign up to get exclusive access to our library of content. And yeah, let's get into the 20 most broken. So we'll start by talking about top laners. Now, first of all, we have Fiora, who hasn't really actually changed at all in this patch, but ever since Riot buffed Stridebreaker, and also Divine Sunder is still as good as it's ever been, and maybe there's even builds where you can go like Trinity Force if you're really snowballing, but the addition of Stridebreaker's extra attack damage now, so it's giving you 60 in total for Fiora. It's an amazing tool to actually use on this champion. The slow is amazing, not just in the 1v1, but also in team fighting, because it allows you to suppress those key targets while getting off your vitals, and of course in the 1v1 as well, so you can actually land, especially when your ult's going, all of those 4 vital procs. Also, Fiora with Ghastly Undying is still as good as it's ever been, so she's the first top laner to consider. Next up, we have Darius, and Darius with the new Trinity Force, well, it's a real big threat, because you're getting more attack damage and attack speed. The snowballing potential is actual huge, and the 3-fold strike passive lasting 5 seconds now, it's an extra couple of seconds for you to keep this stacking. So Darius has to be here as well, and I'd highly recommend either playing Darius or Fiora, or yeah, just banning them as well. Another champion you probably have to do that with this is Jax. And Fiora, Darius, Jax, like man, I don't know how many patches it's gone since I haven't mentioned like one, if not all of these champions in a most broken video, but they're here to stay, honestly. Unless Riot actually nerf the champions, all the items they're building, which could be Trinity Force for Jax, just like Darius, like if you're really snowballing, you can build this. You can still go Divine Sunder, of course, it's amazing on Jax, especially with a lot of HP in the top lane nowadays. You completely shred through that, and because Jax, you know, every 2 auto attacks once you hit level 6, the second one is going to be empowered, so it's a lot more DPS, and you still have amazing scaling, especially with the new AP you have in your E. You can always offer something like Zhonya's Hourglass or something in the mid to late game. But yeah, these 3 champions are just the core amazing top laners for 13-12, another patch. But I've also put 2 more top laners here. The first of these is Malphite. So if you want to cuck a lot of attack damage champions in the top lane, Malphite's amazing. Ever since they buffed him, right, you're probably not going to go W max anymore, because they did nerf this, so the more points you put in it, it won't be as worth. But even if you're just going like Q with Comet, even if you're maxing Q with even Ghastly Undying against those close range champions, this is still viable, and the champion is just innately busted. I just recommend maybe not blind picking Malphite, because you do have a lot of counters. Most AP top laners, right, because you're just building armor all the time, that's who you want to cuck as well. Attack damage champions, so be a little bit careful of that, but picking him as a counter is unreal. Now, one champion who might be able to go toe-to-toe with all of these, this is Olaf, and I say like might be able to, I know he definitely can, according to the stats we have so far in 13-12. Olaf is still an extremely good top laner, pretty much S+ tier in every single elo, so if you fancy throwing a few axes around and dominating the laning phase, Olaf is another one you have to consider. Maybe taking Flash and Ghost as well, just like Darius, so you can actually have that stickiness to the enemy champions and you don't get kited out. Now, moving to the jungle, we've got 4 champions here to talk about in this video. The first of these is Kindred, and how can we not? With Trinity Force, this champion honestly could be the best out of all of these champs. Reason being is because, well, the extra attack damage, the extra attack speed, and of course the 3-fold strike passive lasting longer, it gives you more kite. And because kite is so important for a ranged champion like Kindred, this just makes you all the more powerful. In Challenger in 13-12, just like in 13-11, she currently has over a 55% win rate, and with Trinity Force, it's even higher. You guys just need to know certain mechanics on this champion, so trying to auto attack before you Q is really important, and also trying to keep one champion in your auto attack circle at all times. If you're jumping into 3 champions and you die, you shouldn't be pinging anyone else but your own brain. But let's just say you don't want to play a ranged champion in the jungle, you want to play like a close range snowballing assassin, Rengar is still unreal, guys. If you're going Duskblade, which has been buffed, it hasn't actually been touched in 13-12, which is unreal. So if you're playing Rengar with Duskblade or Draktar, it's amazing. Because the actual damage threshold is higher in terms of the HP you need to hit the enemy target with, this is great, and it's also dealing more damage as well. So the damage is proccing sooner and harder. This is awesome for Rengar, and I think the champion, like most of these anyway, is really innately broken as well. The actual damage you have in your kit without all these items, and the survivability you have as well with your empowered W, which should be easy to proc. When you jump out of a brush and use all your abilities, you'll get the empowered W off as well. So Rengar has to be here, and the stats back it up too. Another champion who has to be here, guys, from the jungle is Rek'Sai. So Rek'Sai is really benefiting from the recent Stridebreaker buffs, just like I mentioned for Fiora and a few of the other champions. Stridebreaker giving you 60 attack damage. Whenever some sort of like assassin hears of a bruiser item getting buffed in terms of attack damage, they're going to be frothing at the lips, yeah? Because if we think about like maybe Talon for mid lane, when Gore Drinker gets buffed in terms of attack damage, Talon mids with Gore Drinker are going to be interested. This goes for assassin junglers as well. So if you're playing something like a Rek'Sai or even AD Shaco, when you have Stridebreaker giving you 60 attack damage as a bruiser item, it's unreal. Stridebreaker for Rek'Sai, of course, as well. Your big weakness is getting kited, and even if you land like your knockup from your burrowed form, if they flash out, they're probably going to survive unless you have your flash. But now with Stridebreaker, it gives you another kind of like gap closing to actually stick to the enemy champions after knocking them up and getting onto them. So that's why Rek'Sai is here as well, because of the new Stridebreaker, and also the recent buffs too. A couple of patches ago to Rek'Sai, they've made her really good, so that's why Rek'Sai is here. Now, final jungler, guys. If you want to play an AP jungler, the best is Nidalee, and I don't think it's even close, to be honest. This champion, ever since they buffed her armor and armor growth, just get me out. I don't even know why they did it. In high elo, it's so oppressive to play against, and I know what you guys are thinking, right? Like, how can this be the case? Because for most people, Nidalee isn't that amazing. Well, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about if you're playing these champions at their peak, Nidalee just has to be here. She's banned so much in high elo, and guess why? Because she's so busted. And put her on one of the best players in the world. It's like the most oppressive thing in the jungle to play against, maybe apart from Kindred, with Trinity Force. Now, heading down to the mid lane here, we have 6 champions to talk about, and there are 4 beginning with the letter A. How exciting. So let's go in alphabetical order here. Let's start with Ahri. Nothing really changing this patch for Ahri. Just keep picking her. Good blind pick. You can counter pick her, you know, into certain things. Yeah, just a good all-around champion. Still really good in terms of win rates and performance, so that's why she's here. Next up, we have Akshan, who is the only attack damage champion here, and honestly, by far the best. And there are some interesting builds out there at the moment for Akshan, so if you're going like, I don't know, Crown of the Shattered Queen, maybe with like Nash's Tooth, you can go Sorcerer Shoes as well, because you have a lot of magic damage as part of your kit, right? But for the most part, if you're going something like a Kraken Slayer Rush, because they buff this in terms of more attack damage now, you're still benefiting from the AP in this, because again, you have magic damage in your kit, so Kraken Slayer Rush is also really good. The champion is just performing at such a high level, and in the mid lane, if you're going something like Fleet with a Q max, if you're going like PTA with a Q max, or even E max into those immobile mages, the champion, according to the stats as well, is just amazing. So he's the only attack damage mid laner on here. Now moving on, we have Annie as well. Just like for Ahri, guys, nothing is really changing for Annie this patch. I cannot believe she's not getting nerfed. Like pro play in 13-12, you're still going to see Annie all the time. So yeah, that's why she's here too, right? Now Azir is the final champion beginning with the letter A, and Azir is here. I know like lots of people think this champion maybe in like the majority of elos isn't that good, but he actually like is. Even in platinum and above, even if you change it to like all ranks, he does pretty well. It's nowhere near like 44-45% win rate, which is what he's had for so long. So ever since they buffed his W or made him like a W-oriented champion now around your soldiers, rather than poking with your Conquering Sands, Azir has become really good. And because they gave ability haste back into Nash's Tooth, this item with the new Azir, with a W max, is super underrated. And Azir in the mid lane doesn't really have many champions that counter him. I mean, of course, you might have something like a Kassadin, which might be annoying, right? LeBlanc might be a little bit scary, but you still have enough laning power to dominate early game and easily get out of it ahead. Get to that Nash's spike, get to the Crown of the Shattered Queen spike, and you should be chilling on the Emperor of Shurima. Now, the final 2 champions, guys, in the mid lane. One of these champions does do well into Azir, who I just mentioned, this being LeBlanc. And we haven't really mentioned LeBlanc for ages, right? Because, well, her win rates in pretty much every single elo haven't actually been that good, but recently, in higher elos, they've been really good, and in 13-12, even better. You know why? Because you're rushing Static Shiv on this champion. That sounds crazy, right? But because it's giving you more damage now if you rush the item, so in the early to mid game, rush this item gives you amazing wave clear on LeBlanc, because your only real form of wave clear is still your W, and you go very quickly, and it gives up all the pressure you have in the mid lane, right? Because your W is the big ability you need to deal damage and threaten the enemy champion. So when you have to just like clear waves, all that pressure dissipates. But with Static Shiv, you can auto attack the wave, and you can also run something like Fleet Footwork with this as well, with a bit of alacrity potentially. So you have all the wave clear you need just with auto attacks. This means your W is going to be sitting there ready to use to pounce on the enemy champions. And LeBlanc in higher elo is an S+ tier champion right now in like Master and above with over a 51% win rate. That is when you know this champion is really broken. But it has to be this setup. If you're going the standard electrocute setup, it's not going to work. Static Shiv, then into Ludens, with Fleet Footwork as your keystone. Really interesting. Any LeBlanc mains, by the way, who actually go this, let us know in the comment section how good it is. Now, the final champion here, guys, again, I can't believe this champion isn't getting nerfed just like Annie, this being Nico. I don't think anyone is going to object to this. Nico's got to be here, stats-wise, ever since the recent buffs hit this champion. When you go something like Rocket Belt, Shadow Flame, Shoes, the magic penetration, just get me out, GG. Moving down to the bot lane here, the AD carries, guys, and if you are enjoying our recent Season 13 content, please let us know by leaving a like down below. And for the AD carries, first of all, we have Draven. This champion is unchanged in terms of just being unreal, a powerhouse. You could even go stuff like Dustblade on this champion if you want to. Ghostblade is still like pretty underrated as well. You can still go like, you know, stat sticks with Infinity Edge. And because he hasn't been nerfed in 13-12 and lots of champions around him in terms of AD carries have been nerfed this patch, so stuff like Kog'Maw and Zeri, who are really good as well, Draven's a standalone best AD carry in my opinion, so that's why he's here. Now moving on, kind of a surprise inclusion here because I didn't mention Ezreal in our recent videos, and the next champion as well I haven't mentioned, that being Samira. So for Ezreal, with Trinity Force, that's why you're here. I'd highly recommend guys just going Trinity Force, Manamune, and then Ravenous Hydra. Statistically anyway, in like every single elo, this has proven to be the best build. You can go Serylda's Grudge if you really feel like you need the kite and the slow against the enemy team because they have a lot of like gap closing and mobility. But Ravenous Hydra is just amazing because it procs off pretty much everything and you will deal so much damage in a game with this. And yeah, we have Samira here because of Dustblade. This is so broken with this champion. Yes, they bug fixed it a little bit this patch, but still you're getting the untargetability after you kill someone in your ultimate. This is making Samira so busted. And with lethality, because if you remember before, right, the old build was getting Serrated Dirk and then you'd go like Shield Bow into Collector. That's still the case, right? Because you're getting Serrated Dirk to build into Dustblade. It's an amazing combination, even though it has been hit a little bit in this patch, and the stats back it up as well. And the final AD carry here, guys, well, it's not an AD carry actually, but if you want to play an AP champion as an AD carry, it has to be Karthus. If you look at the stats in high reloads, he has legit over a 60% win rate, and it's not from 10 games, it's from hundreds of games. So if you see the enemy team has very close range champions, so it might be something like maybe a Samira, it might be a Kog'Maw who's probably still popular, right? Any of those champions who are kind of close range and want to get in your face, especially if the enemy support is close range, it's going to proc your passive, right? So you can get off so much damage against these champions. Compositions Karthus doesn't like are yet just those bot lanes and teams that can play at range, but you rarely see it, and range doesn't really exist, let's be honest, until higher reloads. So pick Karthus if you have no self-respect. Now the final two champions here, guys, are two supports, these being Blitzcrank, and if you don't want to play Blitzcrank, because yeah, maybe you have a bit of self-respect as well, but honestly, Blitzcrank landing your hook, like that's still a legit thing, but yeah, maybe another way to like express your skill, I guess, you can do this on Rel, because Rel is still an amazing support. If you check the stats for me, guys, it's impossible for me not to put her on this countdown, like a 56% win rate in higher reloads, she has to be here. So both of these supports are kind of like engages, I understand that, but with Milio getting nerfed, Ardent Sensor getting nerfed, you know, a bunch of stuff for those Enchantresses and empowering supports, they all got hit this patch. No one is really standing out from that department. You can maybe still pick Milio, of course, Senna is actually still pretty good as well, but Blitzcrank and Rel, and there are probably other champions like Pyke, Rakan can be in here. Lots of engaged champions are amazing still. So those were the 20 most broken champions, guys, for 13-12 according to the recent statistics. Thank you so much for watching the video, and until our next one, this has been Coach Cheeks. Peace.